is another form of putting the pressure on the state to take the state over. And there is a good illustration that's going to be very, very perplexing. That is very, very perplexing to me, because Mississippi as a state now boasts of the fact that they have more black elected officials than any state. It's also, however, remains the state where black people are in the poorest condition.
Right.
So the big question is, you know, I mean, the black folk are over 900 black elected officials as sheriffs, county clerks, city council people, in government offices, appointed and elected officials. See? But the state is still the poorest state in the Union, and the poverty is rampacious in James Eastland's Sunflower County and in every county across Mississippi, with many now black appointed elected officials. So what's the next step for the movement of the black community against the economic deprivation? How is this going to take place, you know? I have not studied the scene enough at all locally or read enough about it to know if the scene is improving or not. But here black folk have assumed state power, responsibility for governance. So I would agree firmly with Lenin at the point that the revolutionary movement must become the government and therefore use state power and local power for governing in a fashion that is, and here again, I think that in many ways you have governments in Europe that have exemplified that. That's given us some models. And they did not take over government. They did take over government with fierce labor struggles. They did not take over government with a lot of violence. So I think that's another place where there needs to be study and reflection on how we do it. Certainly, the struggle in the United States has to assume mass action over a period of time with specific targets, as I tried to say in part yesterday. But I think that as we talked this morning, and I think even more so, that yes, we have to take over the government. And I guess my argument would be that the so-called revolutionary groups that are committed to the violent have not given us any illustration of how this can be done in anywhere. In my own analysis back in the 60s and the 50s, during World War II, in fact, I saw myself as a guerrilla warfare person behind the scenes, which I came to recognize was not possible in the United States. I used an illustration in some places of how, I said this last night, I said part of it, that I could have worked in Nashville with the athletes to go downtown and forcibly with crowbars and others pull all the signs down.
Yeah.
And I thought about that possibility as an option. that would have been option that would have multiplied the hatred and escalated to violence. And Gandhi also says that sabotage is a form of violence. He doesn't have the debate that I've had in the United States over that issue. So if I moved in that direction, rather than being in the circle of friends of the Montgomery bus boycott, who organized as an affiliate of SCLC, and in that group launching a very specific Gandhi-oriented methodology for going after finding the target and planning the attack upon the targets. I mean, that is left out many of the books. That in Nashville, 30 or 40 of us met for 6 months, every month, every day, every week, every Saturday morning, as I recall, analyzing the plight of the Negro in Nashville and making the decision, where do we begin? And I've never forgotten, in June, I don't remember when, but it was at one of those final meetings in June, where we agreed that almost unanimously we're going to launch a campaign against segregation in downtown Nashville. I'll never forget that chill that went in me. You know, at having made that decision, which I had not even thought about. But that group made that decision. No one in the city, no one in the United States, in the black community, any other community, had made a decision. We're going to desegregate downtown Nashville. That put a whole new dimension. Yes, Montgomery points to that. But here's a group that said, and it was the black women in our group that pushed us the most, because they said, among other things, you men don't shop downtown, we shop downtown. That's what they said in our meetings, that were quite open, frank meetings. You don't shop downtown, we have to shop for our families, we have to shop for our children's shoes, we have to shop for groceries downtown. And it's always a horrible experience. You don't know at what point you will be confronted with a hostile clerk or by a hostile white person. And you can't drink at the fountains that are marked colored. You can't. They said we can't drink at those fountains because that is to participate in the system, even a tiny bit. And if you drink at the other fountain, you open up yourself to a physical attack on the spot. There's no restroom that I'm going to go to. I'm not going to go to the colored restrooms at Canaan Sloan's department store. I'm not going to enter that. That's what they said. So we had to have that strategy. That became our goal. Desegregate downtown Nashville, which of course we did begin. I don't pretend that it's finished yet, Nashville, but we began the process, which has to be continued.
If I could actually follow up on what you're saying a little bit, because the state, and you were talking about taking over the state, but the state particularly today has various arms to it. And one thing we've also been discussing, you said right now that there's need of mass action to take over the state, and even yesterday you emphasized the importance of direct action of campaigns. But one part of this is the influence of non-governmental organizations, and which we have seen also ourselves, that often you take up a local issue and you try and participate in it, but then you figure out actually you're trying to help someone get elected. And it is not about the economic
Well,
justice. or the
I
systemic
minimize
justice.
my participation in elections. As a pastor, of course, I could have in place the process by which the congregation was sensitized to election, participated in voter education.
Right.
But
Right, but I
I
wasn't
do a
talking.
minimal point.
Like, I wasn't talking about the election so much as the influence, or I was wondering if you see this as a new thing, where there are a lot of non-governmental organizations who will take up local campaigns, but not fundamentally challenge the structures.
Yeah. But in LA,
Mm-hmm.
and also I know in Nashville where I visited with Black Lives Matter,
Mm-hmm.
Black Lives Matter has too narrow a strategic and theoretical base. We are not going to get rid of the violence of our society through the police if the police themselves and the police union does not become a target of direct action. We're not, I know that's sounds strange, but I think the police is one of the places where power is exercised for the government, which has to be challenged. I think the Chamber of Commerce and business organizations is another power element in our local communities that must be challenged. So if you're going to, the wedding between the KKK and the plantation owner, which spread out into a community of resistance and pushing racism, and so that wedding has to be separated. So I maintain that in the Black Lives Matter movement, if we don't go after business organizations and the police union and the police and the city council, and the county government, and the media,
Okay.
we cannot build a movement to abolish
Just follow up on
violence.
Raju. I think what Raju is talking about is in the 21st century, this whole thing of the diffusion or the apparent diffusion of power through non-governmental organizations that are funded by corporate philanthropies.
Yes, you don't have any argument with me.
Yes.
That is to me a very, very dangerous affair going on.
Yeah. And you know,
Yeah.
you're running, especially young people in this room.
Yeah.
Almost everyone in this room, as a student, has been drawn into some kind of a non-profit affair, thinking they're doing good. You know, so how you would respond to that?
Well,
You
I
know what I'm
agree.
saying?
I agree. I'm right. I'm right there. And you have foundations that will not put money into programs that have justice as a major vision. Will not do it. And I've had some conversations with such foundations in the Los Angeles region. And many non-government organizations, I think in my mind, are avoiding these structural issues, the complicity issues. And I know that there are some social scientists who say that the non-governmental organizations will change the nature of government. But I am not sure of that. I don't see that yet at all. So how we fund the revolution that really does change the United States is a significant problem. How we can fund it is a significant problem.
You want to break for lunch? It's about 1.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have to, and then what is that? We have to get Reverend Lawson to the airport.
My
Uh-huh.
schedule says we're gonna leave at 4 o'clock.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's scheduled.
So Reverend Lawson's flight is, just double check.